I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Sparky.
Hey guys, this is Andy from Thy Art Is Murder.
Right.
You heard it right.
The Andy from Thy Art Is Murder. Funny story. Andy asked us to review this song in the comment section because somebody said, "Oh man, you should review They Will Know Another." And Andy jumped in and said, "Yeah, you guys should review it. I'd like to hear what you have to say."
Vin was like, "You're never gonna believe this, Sori. I think that the band is asking us to review one of their songs." I'm like, "Man, do you have that right?"
Yeah.
All the while, you
She
did.
didn't believe me.
I was a little hesitant.
I guess she believes me now.
I do.
Okay, so we are going to be reviewing They Will Know Another by Thy Art Is Murder. And let's go.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. You know what was tough about that song is that,
Seeing the children.
well, yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to appreciate the music, right? So like the metal is like,
Oh, the metal was.
but it was,
I loved it.
it almost felt like that you're like messing with the sacredness of the moment to rock to the metal because of all the horrible shit that you're seeing.
Oh, I agree.
You know, like I couldn't
agree.
like.
Yeah,
That was
I
pretty
totally
crazy.
agree. That's
That
why I
was
kind of
pretty
feel
crazy.
like at a standstill, but like I really liked what they did instrumentally and lyrically. I loved the vocals on it.
Yeah, the lyrics were crazy and the visuals were like, you know, it just seemed like really crazy to just like, rah, you know, and like
Yeah.
you're seeing this crazy imagery
Rock
of
out to destruction.
all these people getting, you know, just massacred. But could you tell what was going on musically, or were you just too lost in the visuals of the video?
No, I couldn't tell. I just knew that I liked it. But yeah, the visuals, just seeing the children is like, especially like the kid that was face down or whatever into the water.
That's, I think that kid, that was a Syrian kid. And there were bombings and he didn't make it. It's a pretty iconic picture, like in 2017
Oh my
or
god.
15, I'm not sure. But yeah,
So
it's
much destruction.
yeah, it's a brutal song. It's a brutal song. All right. So, Andy wrote the majority of these lyrics. So,
I think that it's really, I guess you could say, brave of a band to put out a song like this because a lot of people don't want to focus on what's going on as far as environmentally and stuff like that. Like, so, you know, people
these-
have their opinions about everything, so I'm sure that some people were like, oh, come on, you know.
these dudes are conscious. Mm-hmm. You know, they're conscious brothers.
Yeah.
You know, good for them. But there was so much, like, a couple of the themes was war, chemical warfare. You know, when you saw those people in the ground. I think I've seen all these videos, like, individually.
Oh, really?
Well, the war scenes, because a lot of that shit was what was going on in Syria from around 15.
What was where the buildings were caving in? Do you know what that was?
That stuff I'm not sure, but all the war scenes I've seen in separate outlets, and a lot of those guys were getting gassed. You know, Bashar al-Assad was gassing his own people because what happened?
Why? Why would he do that?
Well, they had this saying. This is, you know, this goes back to Holy War. It was an Obama era initiative called the Arab Spring.
Yep.
And officially speaking, there's no, we didn't do this or whatever, right? But basically, you had the Iranians, you had the Egyptians, you had Muammar al-Gaddafi over there in Libya. And what happened is there were these like series of like chain reaction uprisings. So it happened in Egypt, right? They deposed the leader of Egypt. And then the Libyans said, well, fuck, we can do that too. So then the Libyans went up against Muammar al-Gaddafi. And we did have assets in the area. It was actually we droned his you know, caravan, and then he was crawling out, and then he got killed right there on camera. Like, they killed him right there on camera. So it's this thing called the Arab Spring, where all these, like, oppressive governments, you know, and they were oppressive. They were just not friendly to the U.S. or Western, you know,
Yes.
states, where they rose up and overthrew their own government.
Okay.
With our help, right?
Yep.
So that's a normal thing. CIA goes in there and they you know, they go in there
Yeah.
with Green Berets and Delta operators, and they train local militia.
Yes.
And local militia goes
Yep.
and you know, beats the hell out of them. So Egypt fell. There's this girl named Nada, I think her name was, in Iran. They were doing these protests in the street, and a sniper hit her, and she went down, and she kind of like became the icon of you know, the Arab Spring.
Okay.
You know, and that actually coincided with my first Twitter account, because everybody had a green thing. It was for her.
Oh.
On their Twitter account. That's when I started, because of this. That was actually my very first tweet, was Nada getting shot.
Oh.
Yeah, that was around 14, 15. So anyway, it set off this chain reaction.
You were 14 or 15?
No.
I'm like, I didn't even know. I'm like, I didn't even think that stuff was around. I wasn't into all the internet and all that stuff until very recently. So
it set off a chain reaction. But yeah, it set off a chain reaction called the Arab Spring. Well, so Egypt fell. Muammar Gaddafi got assassinated. Well, then it went to Syria. Mm-hmm. So Syria, the name of the guy is Bashar al-Assad. And he is, Syria, it's basically broken up between Shia and Sunni. Uh-huh. And so Bashar al-Assad started, he was just your typical dictator. He was just doing evil shit. Mm-hmm. Well, they started this uprising against al-Assad. And al-Assad basically said, no, I'm not fucking Muammar Gaddafi. I will fuck you up. So he starts bombing his own people, gassing his own people, killing kids, kidnapping kids, and sending body parts back to the parents.
Oh my god!
Yeah, dude. Like, he was not playing around. So when you see these videos of these, like...
I would lose my friggin' mind.
Yeah, you see these videos of these Syrian soldiers...
That's what I'm saying. I don't think I could be a pacifist in that sort of an environment.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. You see videos of these captured Syrian soldiers and they're getting, like, wrecked by these people.
That is so friggin' evil.
Well, the reason he did that was because he wanted to break the spirits of the people, because those two other dictators just fell. And so it's like a snowball effect. They were gaining momentum.
What happened?
Well, I mean, that's where you get ISIS from. Right?
What happened to the guy that was doing that?
He's still in power. Al-Assad, he's still in power.
Is he still doing evil shit like that?
Of course. And the Russians are...
that makes me so mad.
The Russians are basically supporting him, because the Russians are basically saying, look, if we don't... he sucks, but you're going to fucking destabilize the region if you don't have him in there. Which, it's true.
Kind of true.
Because think about it. When we were we were supporting the resistance against Muammar Gaddafi, do you know who was leading the resistance? Al-Qaeda. So we were supporting Al-Qaeda troops in Libya and fighting them in Afghanistan. Wallahi, I'm telling you the truth. So the Russians are saying, look who's fighting al-Assad. Yeah, he's terrible, but look who's fighting him. It's ISIS. At the time it was Jabhat al-Nusra and all these other groups, and the FSA, called the Free Syrian Army, which was originally the army that we were supporting because they were basically secularists. Right? Uh-huh. And so we were supporting sort of like the secularist militia, because it's like, oh, okay, they're going to go and they're going to establish, democracy. They're not going to establish Sharia because they're secularists. Well, what happened was you had these other militant groups like Jabhat al-Nusra, and Jabhat al-Nusra and Ansar al-Sharia. So Ansar means helpers. Uh-huh. Ansar al-Sharia would be the helpers of the Sharia. They were saying, no, we're not trying to create a secular state. We're trying to create a Sharia state because they're Muslims.
Right.
And so, just like if you're a Christian, you wouldn't want a completely secularized state either.
Right.
So you have all these groups. Well, then there was this one group that was part of Al-Qaeda in Syria, which then broke off and then became the Islamic State in Syria, also known as ISIS.
Okay.
And ISIS started to collapse all these Sharia jihadist groups into one, and they stopped fighting Bashar al-Assad and went after the FSA. Because they said, no way, we're not going to let you guys establish basically America in Syria, which is exactly what we were trying to accomplish.
No.
And so they basically told everybody in the FSA, look, you either join Islamic State in Syria or we're gonna kill you. So they turned away from Bashar al-Assad and then went after the FSA, and they completely wiped out the FSA in like a month and a half. And then what they did was they went to Iraq, because the Iraqi troops in general have a reputation of just being soft. And they just went out and murdered like thousands of Iraqi troops. They just lined them up, and then they went back into Syria to go fight Bashar al-Assad. Well, as this is happening, Assad is bombing the hell out of little kids, that kid that you saw.
Oh my gosh.
And then the Russians are helping him bomb the hell out of kids.
Oh my god.
So all these civvies are getting they're caught in the middle.
That is so terrible.
Between ISIS and Bashar al-Assad. And we went in there and created this whole Arab Spring, and now we're looking at oh shit, well, that's terrible. So Bush went and destabilized Iraq, you know what I mean, and left that gap in there, and then Obama went in there with his Arab Spring, and that's genius. So you gotta leave that place alone. So basically, the song is...
Now, is that something that a lot of people wouldn't agree with you on what you just said?
What?
All of what you just said, destabilizing the region.
It's historical fact. We did.
Well,
I mean,
I think something is fact, but people say that's being subjective. But
No.
is that something that everybody understands? Do people have differing views on that? They must. There must be. There must be some people that say, "No, we didn't destabilize it."
Even hard right people realize that. That's why they say we need to have troops still in the Middle East.
I'm very surprised.
The reason people are saying we still need troops in the Middle East is because they realize that the region is destabilized.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you depose a dictator, that means you need to replace him with somebody equally strong. Well, the profile is a dictator.
Yep.
Right? So.
Yep.
So what? Now you've got Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi who fills the Saddam Hussein gap, right? So the point is, it's a really interesting. I don't want you to look away. I want you to watch our children die, because it seems to me like even when you're trying to do something good, let's establish democracy in the Middle East, it ends up with kids dying. So it's like, don't look away. Look at what's happening. Look what happened in Egypt, Libya, Syria, Iraq. Look what's happening all over the world.
Wow, a sea of shame floods us with terror. Wow.
Right. So you see all those people on the ground in the hospital. They got sarin gas, man. That's a pretty fucking terrible way to die. Google it. I don't want to talk about it, but it's terrible. So you have that warfare, which is this constant cycle of warfare that no matter what you do, it always ends up with the weak and defenseless dying, and then you have the politicians who are safe. You know, Bashar al-Assad is still chilling in the comfort of his home, you know what I mean? Like he's, and Obama's chilling and everybody's chilling. Bush is chilling, everybody's chilling, but the kids on the ground are getting killed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Peel away the skin, grind their bones to dust. Part the seas, shift the trees.
Is that like because of the chemical warfare and stuff like that? Like peel away the skin? Is that what he means?
I mean, there's a lot of things that happen that can peel away skin. Bombings, gas attacks, the whole 9 yards.
Grind their bones into dust?
When you bomb them.
Oh my gosh.
When you bomb somebody, you're basically eradicated. And remember, I was just talking about what happened like in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Think about
been happening.
Nuclear bombs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got thousands and thousands of people just turn to ash
I
immediately.
wonder what happens inside of the heart of a human being that has to make the decision or takes part in making the decision to send a bomb like that over that they know is going to kill lots of people. Like, how does your heart recover from such an atrocity? Like, and what point do you have to be at for you to actually convince yourself, like, this is better? Or maybe you have yourself convinced, like, okay, this is the lesser of two evils or something like that. But then eventually when you, like, sit down and think about, or you see pictures or something, of, like, what's happened to people. Because it's one thing to, like, I remember seeing bombs going off in, like, pictures, but it wasn't, like, up close. You didn't see, like, what was happening to actual human beings. Like, there's a difference when you see,
Yeah. Well, I was watching a special on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy moment because I think it was either Hiroshima or Nagasaki, I'm not sure. But the wind, they were going to bomb another city, actually. It wasn't originally supposed to be Hiroshima. And the winds or something was too screwy, and it would have sent the bomb into an ocean or something like that. I forgot what it was. So they said, all right, well, what's the next closest city? Okay, Hiroshima, great. So they went that way.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it's like, and that always messed with me, like, something like that, a wind pattern, makes the determination of which thousands of people get evaporated and which thousands of people survive.
It's not like you're friggin' flying a kite. Well, we'll just fly it in that field because it's going to get caught up in the trees over here.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's
Peel away the
crazy.
skin and grind the bones to dust. Yeah, like
I always feel worse about, like, the kids because I feel like the longer that a human being is alive, the more, like, shit they do to other people. And you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, when I was 6, I hadn't done as much as I've done now that I'm in my 30s. You know what I mean? So, like, when you see, like, a kid washed up on a beach, you're like,
yikes.
Oh my gosh, like.
Andy, what was sort of the inspiration for writing the song from your perspective?
The song's directly inspired by my experience in 2015 of having a child. So I have a little daughter who's 2.5 now. And so, you always think about these things, but then it makes it immediately and directly relatable that every choice that you make in the way that you live your life day to day directly affects the result that they get, in the way that the food that you feed them, the education you provide them. There are many other choices with very complex tangents that run away from them that are leading to the result that they have to either enjoy or, at this point, basically deal with. A lot of economic disparity as we move forward, where the classes are just going like this. In Australia in particular, there's a massive, I wouldn't say housing crisis, but it's very difficult for anyone from my generation or younger to afford housing, because so many people from generations before us have just purchased all the property that's there and just jacked up the prices for rent to make it so, you can afford to rent, but you won't be able to afford to save a down payment and then make a mortgage repayment. So, you're talking about the average rent in a major city in Australia is like $4,000 a month. It's crazy. Americans pay like 33% of their income to their accommodation. In Australia, it's like 50 to 60%. It's wild. And so, that comes into it also.
Yeah, definitely. If you got a 2-year-old daughter, you start looking at the world. I think when you start having kids, it changes
you. It literally changes
your perspective on things.
If you care about the kid, if they're just a nuisance to you, and then I don't know that it's going to affect you. But if you actually have a connection with the child, which lots of people do, then it does. It affects your outlook on lots of things.
Because it was just all the different feelings that I had about what was I contributing towards for my daughter's future. So, and it's inspired by so many different movements. What kind of car do you drive? What kind of fuel is it operated on? What is your diet composed of? What kind of industry do you support? What kind of, supporting ethically farmed goods, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, or just don't eat meat 3 times a day, 7 days a week, all of these very small choices that we make every day, times by 7.3 billion entities on Earth. You think if all those people didn't eat meat for one day, and I'm not a vegan, but I'm very sympathetic to that movement, didn't eat meat for one day, what effect would that have on the global, livestock industry? And if everyone didn't drive their car for one day, what's that going to do to fuel prices? What's that going to do to these idiots in Congress that are suppressing renewable energy sources and saying, let's get more oil and keep burning it as fast as we can, and we'll figure it out later. It's like all those small things that everyone can do will help to make a better tomorrow for our children and their children.
Yes, but there's a way to progress technologically without demolishing everything behind you. As we grow in intelligence and we understand the footprint that we're making, we should take more care. But because I believe, because we're so money-grubbing hungry that we don't care what it's going to demolish or who it's going to affect, because we're only focused on the now. So we can't think to the future and what things are going to do and how they're going to affect us, because we're only thinking about the money we're going to make now.
Well, yeah. And
I'm not excluding myself from it, because even when I think, there was a time where I was buying, the meats that were raised humanely, and they had free reign, they could go around, and then they were killed. I'm still a meat eater, so still eat that stuff, but let's deal with it, not putting them friggin', sometimes you see a big tractor trailer truck go by and there's all kinds of feathers poking out, and you see these small ass cages that these chickens are in, and I'm like, that's so wrong. And they're stacked in there mad deep all the way through, it's wrong. We shouldn't be doing this, but it's about money. And so I'm at the grocery store and I'm looking at the price difference between, the Purdue chicken and then the chicken that's been raised humanely. And I'm like, I got 6 people in my family. It's not feasible for me to buy that way. And I feel terrible about it, but obviously not terrible enough, because I'm still buying the stuff that I know is not right.
Yeah, you both make a good point. It's to your point, the beak is practically poking out of the freaking truck because they're so jam-packed. And then
It's wrong.
to Andy's point, if we all stopped for a day, we'd be able to like push back on that evil ass industry and say, fuck you, but we got a big
Well,
fucking
right,
family.
it's true because, well, no, and that's the thing. I'm saying we have a big family, but I could say, okay, we're not going to eat meat 7 days out of the week. We're going to eat meat 3 days out of the week, so we're going to buy the more expensive meat, but we're just not going to eat as much of it.
We'll just eat pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the whole move the sacred stones for the sake of technology, you know, the Dakota Access Pipeline, that was a big thing, right? Where
I don't know what about that.
Well, it's basically, we're trying to build this pipeline. It's basically, you know, more technology and all this good stuff for us, which would benefit us as a whole. But it's on certain land. It's on sacred land for these Indians. Or Native Americans, sorry. And so there was this big thing because some people are saying, well, yeah, you're on, you know, and what's her face? The girl from Mother. The lead actress, I forgot what her name is.
Honey, I won't remember that.
But she went there, got arrested. Bernie went there. It was just this big giant thing about a year and a half ago.
I remember
because
that now.
you're on there and people are getting protested. There's some police brutality. It was crazy.
Yeah, weren't they like blasting people with the hoses and stuff and?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like federal, you know, it's, you know, but, and it's there to, you know, obviously not very good for the environment.
See, what happens is, if it's not if it doesn't like affect you, you know what I mean? Like, it's not your sacred land. So you're like, what the fuck? It's sacred land? I mean, come on.
This is evolution. Let's go.
Let's move forward here, you know? But like, to these people, that's very important to them. Like, for me, like, I don't believe that any land is sacred. Like, I think we should take care of the whole planet. Like, I don't have any, but then again, if there was, and I think that we would have differing views on this, but if there was a graveyard that, say, had my family buried there, my family had always been buried in the same graveyard, and then they were going to friggin' plow a thing through so that way they could sell more whatever, that would bother me.
Well, the other issue, though, was that the pipeline was going to travel under the Missouri River, which is the primary drinking source.
Well, what is this pipeline? What was going to be in it?
Well, oil. What else? So it was going to travel under the water source for the Standing Rock Sioux Nation. So, you know, but
if there's any sort of problem, you're going to ruin that whole.
Well, yeah. I mean, it comes with severe, you know, potential for, you know, destruction for those people, for sure.
For sure.
So some of it was, this is sacred land, and then the government was coming back and saying, this is technically not on your sacred land, and they said, motherfucker, it's under our primary source of drinking water. And, you know, if you think about what happens in Michigan, where Flint, Michigan, right, where all the water's screwed up and kids are getting lead poisoning and probably gonna die in 5 years if the water's brown. You know, you turn on the socket and the water comes out brown, like Flint, Michigan, like their water crisis is still there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, and when Hillary was running, she's like, I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna fix this problem and blah blah blah, and then she lost. She's never been back there since. You know what I mean? Like, we're really fucking shit up with the environment. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, on the one hand, it's war, right? And that's terrible. We saw the image. On the other hand, it's like, this is like real shit.
Well,
like,
I think it's easier.
People's drinking water?
It's easier to point at like the war and say, wow, those motherfuckers shouldn't be doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when we could make choices every day,
we're all complicit.
I don't recycle. I don't have time for that, and I don't want to go through all that. I used to recycle, but I'm at a phase in my life where I don't want to recycle. I don't want to take that time. But that's wrong. I should be recycling, not throwing everything in the same bin so it can all get...
I could make another YouTube video with the amount of time that you're taking to recycle. No, I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
So it's like, old world, don't look away. I want you to watch our children die. And there's not a lot of hopefulness in this. It's kind of like you're like holding the previous generation accountable for the fucking evil world that we inherited. Mm-hmm. But then at the same... Go ahead.
But then at the end, we're held accountable for what's happening to the next generation. We become the old world that can't look away. That shouldn't look away.
Right. So, like, we're looking back at the old world and say, I want you to... But in the future, our kids are going to look back at us and say, why'd you buy all that chicken?
Like, why? Why did you need that?
What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why'd you need all that oil?
Well,
how come you guys couldn't carpool?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like...
Right.
And then whatever... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's a verse in the Bible that says that their God is their bellies.
Yeah.
And I think that
God is your stomach.
Yeah, you know, your stomach. We want to eat this. We want that. We want that. You know, like we just consumers.
Worship your senses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm guilty on that, man.
Yeah, and Andy, you had a point about evangelicals and the environment. Like, go talk about that for a little bit.
It's one of my main gripes with organized religions around the world. Not guys, but there's a very interesting causation and correlation between, you know, and in the last, depending on who you are, maybe for the last 200 years, Republicans, Christians,
Sure,
rednecks, like, and you know, so fundamental Christian institutions, you know, it's almost like there's this thought crime suppression built into it. Like, as soon as you think about something evil, you're a sinner, and I think that that's something that needs to not happen, so that we can have intelligent discussion and debate and educate these people. And so, I mean, that's where the it's partly causation, partly correlation. Like, some of these people in these really fundamental church groups are so suppressed from thinking freely that they're going to continue to operate like that. And you know, we see it with like the Mormon church, and you fear to leave your family for thinking differently to the way that you've been brought up. So it kind of just continues progeniting itself. And also there's just, it could be correlation that some people, I mean, particularly in the third world, don't have access to education, and the only education that they get is provided through the goodwill of religious organizations, which is what we see in Africa nowadays.
Yeah. And you know, on the one hand, like, I've been very critical about nihilist thought, right? Nihilism, everything is emptiness, and it's going to devolve into emptiness. And so the video doesn't end very hopefully. Like, everything just basically gets washed out. But at the same time, there is a certain sort of nihilism to evangelicalism, especially like this sort of like end times, the whole world is going to be destroyed.
No, you're right.
Right?
Yes.
Everything is going to get fucked up. So we don't care about fossil fuels. We don't care about,
you're right,
you know, Flint, Michigan and all that, as long as we're not in Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, we don't care about any of that stuff because God's going to blow the whole world up anyway. So who cares? Let's just
right, because there's different, just like in Satanism or all the different things, there's different strands of it. And one of them, we're not part of the camp that says that the whole thing's going to be destroyed. So, you know, whatever, treat it how you want. I used to be in that camp. I used to think that, you know, all of a sudden everything was just going to be destroyed. So, I mean, really, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But I'm not in that. I see different stuff in the Bible that I'm like, nope, I don't think that was actually true.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's going to affect how you're going to live your life.
Yeah.
If you think everything's going to burn anyway, so why are you going to care about so far into the future? Especially if you think, a lot of times they're like, we're in the end times, we're in the end times.
Yeah.
So if you believe we're in the end times, you're not even thinking about further generations because you pretty much think this is about it.
Yeah. And so I remember being told, like, oh, there's not even gonna be a year 2000. Remember the whole
yes,
Y2K
yeah,
thing?
I totally remember Y2K.
Jesus is gonna come back in the year 2000, so we don't need to take care of the earth. And haven't you read Revelation?
Yeah.
Well, we've read Revelation, and Revelation 11:18 says that one of the reasons that God destroys the world, it says, the time has come to judge the earth and for destroying the destroyers of the earth.
Right. Right.
So one of the themes in Revelation as to why God judges people is because they destroy the earth. Hello? So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where, because you believe that the entire world is going to get wrecked,
Yep.
you become one of the destroyers of the earth.
Right.
Which then in turn leads to your destruction.
Right.
And notice, it doesn't say for destroying the earth.
Right.
It says for destroying the destroyers of the earth. Hello!
There's a difference.
So you know, even from a Christian world, especially from a Christian worldview, it does not match to have this sort of planetary nihilism that everything's just going to blow up into smithereens. Like passages like that, and then if you look at Revelation's at the end of the Bible, right? Genesis is at the beginning of the Bible. In the beginning of the Bible, Adam is place into the garden, and he's told
take care of it.
He's told the actual Hebrew is to guard and keep it.
Right.
You're supposed to guard the garden. You're not supposed to fucking ruin it.
Right.
Right? So it makes sense in Revelation where God gets it and he's like, okay.
I told
you. You don't want to guard the garden? I've given you this amazing gift. Goodbye. Have a great day. Like, hello.
Wow.
But yeah, you're seeing all this like epic carnage with the, with the polar ice caps melting and all this shit. And I get it. Like, there are arguments about it, and we'll probably have a what do you call it? A global warming expert versus a global warming denier expert, and we'll talk about the podcast and learn from each other. But I mean, there is an environmental problem. We are doing something wrong. I think we all can agree on that, right? So it's crazy. It was a really good video, I think, to be able to deal with both of them.
I went to the doctors to get a checkup, and you know how they take your blood pressure?
Yeah.
She opens up this package and she takes out the blood pressure cuff and she puts it on my arm, and I thought, what the heck? Like, you know how they used to have one that they would just use the same one for everybody. Yeah. Now I said, do you guys recycle those? She said, no, we throw them right away. I'm like, all that stuff, one use on my arm, and it's getting thrown away. Can't they recycle it?
Multiply
like, can you
that,
how many arms people get their blood pressure taken in a day?
Multiply that by like 350 million people in America.
I was like,
that's crazy.
This is madness. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I just sat there, and then I'm like, you know what? The lady already looked like she didn't like me, so I didn't want to make matters worse by telling her, your hospital is not environmentally conscious at all.
Yeah, you're just a liberal. Like that's the thing. Like, you're just one of them tree huggers. Yeah, that's where we get our oxygen from. Like, you should probably hug a tree, you idiot. I shouldn't have said that. But
I used to be so conscious of the environment. Like, remember that phase?
You did.
Like, and I loved being like that. But then life got so busy and chaotic that McDonald's is faster than being environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
But I do want to definitely get back to that.
Yeah, so like the overarching message of the song was pretty nihilistic. I mean, Andy, would you agree with that? Was it a nihilistic song or what?
At this point, I'm a little bit of a nihilist, kind of fatalist guy. I think we're at the tipping point, or we're a little bit past it. I'm not going to live long enough to know. Thankfully, and that's what the line, I'm not afraid to die, I'm afraid I'll survive, is. Dying would be much easier for me than for me to live on and see what kind of pain and suffering there will be for children in the future, because that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I hear you. And, there's nihilism on both sides, obviously, that we just articulated. I think, whenever I see songs like this, I'm like very, very good at defining the problem. And not very hopeful of a solution, but I think, our view of the world is that a lot of these things can actually be reversed. If we all, and will be reversed, I think.
Yeah. But we all have to become more conscious of what the job that God gave us, or the opportunity that God gave us when He first created us. And when we start taking that seriously, and then we all start trying to beautify the earth and kind of spread out on it, not in a way to overtake it and just strip it of everything, but there's like a give and take. The kids were watching this really dumb, boring movie. What was that? Val something. The one just the other night. It was mad boring.
Oh, Valerian. God.
Valerian. It was really boring. But anyway, the point, like,
I couldn't even endure it. Didn't I leave?
Yeah, you did. Early. You left. They would take like some stuff from the ocean, but they would like 3 times a year they would like give back to the ocean and stuff. Like, there's, I think we all have to look for opportunities to like give back to our environment rather than just taking all the time.
Well, the funny thing is like, if you go from a biblical perspective on what our original job was, God placed Adam in a garden, which to me, like, the garden is the pinnacle of what nature can be.
Yeah.
And that give and take where Adam, who's made of dirt, puts his hand in the dirt to cultivate something out of the dirt. And then because the fruit and the vegetable has seeds in it, you take it and there's this sort of taking and giving back, taking and giving back and taking and giving back. And like, you don't have, and you're basically, their command was to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. And you were supposed to basically expand the Garden of Eden. So my point is, like, God's standard was originally not even like, don't fuck up the earth. It was like, make the earth more beautiful, make it more of a garden. And like, evangelicalism has swung the other way. Like, forget about the garden.
Yeah.
We'll have a garden in paradise, up there. And not, from our perspective, no, the garden's supposed to be here. Like, we never got fired from that job. We're supposed to, like, use technology to gardenize the earth and make sure everybody's fed and make sure that everybody's good. Not so that we can accumulate the earth's resources so that we can have power over people. And which is what we're doing.
Right.
That's the reason that we're so horrible to the earth. The reason that we're doing this to the earth. People always say to me, like, if we didn't have religion, everything would be good. We had this conversation yesterday in our hangout, and I'm like, look, the shit that we're doing to our environment, the evangelical voice is terrible, but evangelicalism is not driving the fucked up shit we're doing to the environment.
Right.
It's just plain old capitalistic greed. And I'm not saying that capitalism is like evil and that I'm a communist or a socialist. What I'm saying is, this is human nature. I don't care what you call it. I don't care what belief system you have. It's human nature. You're going to see this beautiful thing called the earth. Whether you think that it's just a random gift of evolution or you think it's a gift from God, you see this beautiful thing called the earth, and you see this useful thing called oil or crude oil, and instead of finding a way for it to benefit everybody, there's like 9 or 10 guys that are like, I could fucking get rich off of this thing and fuck the environment and everybody else. Oh, that's your drinking water source? Fuck you.
Yeah, terrible.
That's not a religious, like, that's just plain old secularist,
right.
money growing.
Selfishness.
And then you have the religious side coming in because we're Americans and we don't want our little apple cart shaken and we don't want to inconvenience our lives. So we're going to go along with the greedy secularists and abandon our posts.
Nope.
And then mock people who are worried about the environment.
Yep.
There's this one story in the Bible where it's Hezekiah. And like, Hezekiah brings the Babylonians in and shows them all the riches because he's bragging.
Oh my gosh.
So God says, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, why would you do that? That's in the Hebrew. What the hell is wrong? And so God says, you know what, Hezekiah? These same people that you were just showing off your riches to because your giant ego, they're going to show up in the next generation and like, they're going to make your sons eunuchs and they're going to slaughter a whole bunch of people and they're going to bring your whole family down to Babylon in chains.
Yep.
And it says, Hezekiah thought for a moment and he said,
you're never going to believe what he said.
He basically said, the Lord's will be done. Which sounds like a really nice religious, is what the evangelicals say when it's, the environment. Oh, the Lord's will be done. And then the narrator says, Hezekiah said these things because he said to himself, there will be peace in my days.
Fuck my kids.
Fuck 'em.
I'm going to have a good time.
Fuck him. Kid's going to be a eunuch.
What?
Which means,
no more.
Very important member of his family. And he doesn't care because it's not going to affect him, which is sort of like the church's position on the environment.
Yeah.
Because the world isn't going to go into nuclear winter tomorrow. We're going to be long gone. And then that's kind of like I'm afraid of living to watch what you're going to have to endure, which is kind of Hezekiah. It's kind of Hezekiah's idea, only a little bit more virtuous because he's saying, I don't want to see it. I mean, is that where you were going? Okay. So, there you go. All right. Very good song. Very close to human nature. Andy, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. These were clips from an interview that we did with Andy from Diary's Murder. So if you want to see the whole interview, we will be posting that soon. He spent about a good 2 hours with us.
He was with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes. So we're going to post the regular interview and then our Patreon subs. We're going to give you guys a little montage of the outtakes that we had with him because it's about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to post
everything. So you guys will
everything,
get a little extra content.
But you guys will get extra content. But the entire official interview is going to be free. What do you rate this song?
10. I mean, I can't give it any less. I loved the vocals. I loved the music behind it. And for me, the message, I loved the message. Like, I couldn't give it any less for that. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's this is weird. Like, it's a 9 for me. The reason I didn't give it a 10 was because, and this is one of the reasons I don't watch videos, but I you know, you kind of had to watch this video. I went with the song. I was so entranced by the visuals that I wasn't really able to like completely enter into the metal, although I could tell musically that it was a hard song.
Yeah.
And there was like a little melodic piece, like, fuck, I'll give it a 10. Because there was enough where I'm like, there's a little melodic, which the other one didn't have. Holy War didn't have that little melodic, but there was like a little melodic section that was like in the middle. And I thought that was actually accurate because it's a mournful, it's a mournful thing we're talking about.
Definitely.
And so like, you know, a lot of this genre of music is like, and all this very masculine emotions, but they did let some of that sensitivity in there with the guitars in the middle. So, and I love melodic guitars next to hard shit. So you convinced me. It's a 10. It's a 10. You know what I always use as a standard for a 10 is, could I?
Yeah, put it in the future.
Put it in the future, exactly. You know, and this is one of those songs. Is there even gonna be a future?
Well, or
to put it in,
you know, like according to Christian theology, true Christian theology is there is going to be a future,
right?
And it's going to get better. So they're going to look back. They would look back at this song. They'd be like, "Wow, they were crazy back then, wrecking the environment like that."
Well, yeah, but I think that this is what an artist is supposed to do.
What do you
like
mean?
You're supposed to look at your world and critique it in a creative way, so that it spurs on change. You know, so like they do this amazing song. We have this conversation. We post it. Thousands of people are gonna see it, and it's a challenge to all of us to fucking reverse this shit.
Right.
Like, if you don't like the outcome of nihilism, then you're gonna have to do something to reverse that tide. Because right now, Thanos is winning.
Yep.
You know. All right. Vin out.
Sori out.
Sparky out.
Marshy out. See you later.
Gone.